Welcome to Bluegrass Brooklyn, our podcast all about the music we love, straight from the Bluegrass borough of Brooklyn, New York.
Another empty bottle on the shelf. Another game with this hand I've been dealt. They ask for reasons why.
Welcome to this Monday edition of Bluegrass Brooklyn. I'm Mike Wilner.
And I'm Liz Wolfe.
And on these Monday editions, we like to explore topics related to supporting and of interest to the music we love. Today, we're going to talk about the recent Jam Jersey 3-day hotel takeover hosted and organized by Liz Wolfe and Jordan Richmond.
Before we get into the interview, I want to remind everyone that you should follow us, subscribe to our podcast, give us lots of great 5-star reviews, and in general, support this, which supports bluegrass music worldwide. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's get started with the interview. First of all, Liz, what has always fascinated me is you spent a lot of time in the run-up to Jam Jersey. To describe it, Jam Jersey is a 3-day event?
I would probably say a weekend-long event. It's a weekend of jamming, but also of workshops. We had some workshops. We had some concerts to go along with that. We, of course, had an open mic. We had a lot of fun. We had a raffle. We had vendors. We had a couple of things going on there. So we even had some craft beer that was given to us by our sponsors. So we look for all the ways in which we can make the event enjoyable for people.
Right. Now, you were pretty busy in the weeks and months leading up to this. Give us a little bit of a view into what it takes to organize an event like this.
Well, the words pretty busy kind of don't adequately describe it. First of all, it's months and months. So we're already talking about 2027. We've already had a meeting about it. We've had our recap from the last one. We've had the next one. We're looking at the timeline. So what goes into it is, number one, securing a location. And I think this is the most important thing for whatever anybody's going to do, any event that you're going to do. Is this event space conducive to supporting what you need? And clearly, we needed enough jamming space for people, for 200 and some odd people to show up and jam. And not just enough space, but is it where you don't happen to be able to hear every person, like as if there's no wall between you and that sort of thing as well. I want to also make sure that people know we didn't do this only on our own. We had an event producer who was one of our sponsors, Chris Kindred, and he was invaluable, of course. Plus, we got some really awesome social media support from Kim Musler this year. And that leads me to bringing up all the volunteers who made this a very special event. People who took photos, people who led jams. So all of that stuff takes a lot of organization ahead of time, communicating with the hotel, making postcards, getting people to sign up, setting up Simple Tick, setting up Square. There was so much of it. Of course, we did last year, but this year we also were able to utilize all those things.
There's a million things you could do, might want to do. How do you sort through all that and nail that down to an actual schedule of 3 days?
Great question. It comes from a couple of different places. Number one, our schedule is going to have as many jams on it as possible. And we like to have fun with it. What are some of the themed jams that we can have? For example, we had your jam, Mike, which was the Jam Busters Jam. And that was the jam where people could come and play a jam buster, that something you always want to play in a jam, but every time you do it, it's a flop. But those are times when you get to learn new songs. We had Women's Voices Jam. We had a swing jam. We had instrumental only. We had singing jams. So these are all things that people have told us from their surveys that they're interested in. But it also comes from the volunteers' ideas themselves. So some of the workshops were, this is the kind of workshop I want to do. I was speaking with Bob Griffin, who did the Western Swing workshop, and he said he had 25 people show up to talk about Western Swing. So we'll do a Western Swing jam. That was his idea. Western swing, sure.
Did you find there were ideas you just couldn't get onto the schedule, or did you have to like fill in gaps at the end?
So I'm a font of never ending ideas. And so there is a certain point at which where you need to say, okay, no more ideas. I would say that was one of my biggest struggles, was getting that schedule solidified. By the way, Jordan did a lot of work on this as well, because he's in touch with all the workshop leaders, and he did the first draft of the schedule. It was a little late, I will admit. I was up at 1 a.m. printing the programs the night before. So we were already planning to say, once we have the schedule, pretty much that's it, no more.
We talk about getting things set up. There's nuts and bolts, there's the programming, there's the volunteers. So what went wrong? What didn't materialize and what didn't happen that you were hoping or expecting to happen? How did you compensate?
Well, there were suggestions from last year's survey that didn't get on, one of which was to have a little putting green.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And, I'm bringing it up because I thought, next year I'm going to do that. I'm going to have it because that person said that. And then the reality, I went on to Amazon and I looked at the things. I mean, I know they were kind of saying it as a joke, but on the other hand, once I started thinking, oh, that'd be fun, that'd be funny, it didn't really go with it, the event. Right. I want to reiterate to say one thing that, quote, went wrong was feeling like I was very time crunched at the end. I don't want to be up at 1 o'clock in the morning. Well, and it wasn't just me. My sister Jennifer came this year, and the two of us are up stapling and all that. It's work I like doing. I just don't like the part where I feel so at the end. And it just seems like every event is like that. There's always things that happen at the end. How do you prepare better?
Right. Well, I guess it comes with experience. Maybe the third time around, the stapling takes a lot of time. So let's start it a week in advance and that type of thing.
Right.
I do want to talk a little bit about the jamming that I participated in, because I had a number of experiences which I felt were kind of special. One was I got to lead a slow jam, and we managed to make it around the circle, I think twice, and everybody got to call a few songs, because people hear slow jam, they're not sure necessarily what it means. And I defined it for people as 3 to 4 chords, a song other people are likely to know, one you know well and are prepared to explain and teach and play and lead. So this way, when someone said, well, I never tried this before and I'm not quite sure how it goes and that kind of thing, I was able to say, well, that's not really slow jam material. You don't want to throw that curveball at people who are here to do a slow jam. But that went very well, and I think people enjoyed it. The Jam Buster Jam was great because many people walked in and said, what is a Jam Buster Jam? And basically all those songs you don't get to call for a variety of reasons. They're too complicated. They're too many chords. They're maybe genre adjacent, but not what people typically want to play. We've talked a lot about what a jam buster is, but if everybody in the room is there to bust a jam, they no longer become jam busters. So I got to call some songs I never get to call. This came from last year at Jam Jersey, where it was midnight. There were just 4 or 5 of us, and we were like, you mind if I called this song? I know it's got 8 chords, or I know whatever, and everyone got into it. So that was a lot of fun. The third experience I wanted to convey, I think it was maybe the Saturday night, late, and there was a relatively large circle, and it was bluegrass only, and really bluegrass only. It was a bluegrass jam. And I think everybody there kind of knew it, because sometimes you wind up calling something that's adjacent, maybe a little more classic country, maybe a little more classic rock, but country-ish. But no, not in this one. And as it went around the circle, and this is part of picking up the vibe of a jam. The vibe of this jam was definitely everybody's calling Stanley Brothers, Flatt and Scruggs, Osborne Brothers, and boom, boom, around the ring. So, and somebody said, well, I want to do, I don't know what he called, and it was sort of the peer pressure bore down on him immediately. And he said, well, instead, maybe I'll call Blue Ridge Cabin Home, or whatever it was. But it was a real pleasure to just sit in the jam that was focused and maintained that focus by mutual consent of the participants. As you said, though, there are a lot of jams going on. You seem to be in and out of a lot of them.
Yes. So what was interesting about my experience this year versus last year, and something I'm going to change again for next year, is I spent a lot of time at the front desk, because, first of all, there were more people this year than last year, and many people of whom I'd never met.
Right.
And so I wanted to make sure that I was meeting people, making them feel welcome. That was very important to me. One of the things that came up for us was how we're going to check people in. This year we had an event app that you could look at the schedule. And that particular app allows you to check in electronically. And there was some talk we
Oh, I
had
see.
about, next year people could just check in on their iPad. And I said, I don't want that. I do not want people's first interaction being an electronic device. Nobody was arguing with me about it. But when I really thought about it, it's vaguely, slightly, almost could potentially be a little annoying to wait behind somebody while they finish checking in. And sure, if you could do that on an app, yeah. But I spoke to every single person that checked in on some capacity or another.
Right.
So remember, this is Bluegrass. It's all about community. And I'd rather you wait for an extra 3.5 minutes. Maybe you'll strike up a conversation with the person that's standing next to you, or maybe you hear a jam that's happening in the same room, in the lobby, etc. So I really want people to walk away with community experience. In that way, I actually played a little less this year than I did last year,
Uh-huh.
as long as the front desk was open. On the other hand, I'm going to freely admit the thing I like best about organizing is I can walk into any jam at any time and say, I'll do one. And then people will smile and let me do one. And then I
There
can
you go.
leave. And, I don't have to wait my turn. I could
There
just
you
be
go.
like, hey, I'm only here for a minute. Can I lead a song? And in that way, just got to experience a lot of different jams and people. It's so wonderful to go into a room and see people and the combinations. These are people that I know from all these different jamming places,
Right.
and people I don't know, and see these combinations of people together playing. And at the end, we had 2 jams on Sunday morning. We had the gospel jam, of course, and then we had the outlaw jam.
Right.
And that was basically anybody that didn't want to play gospel. So I went into those rooms, and the majority of the people who were there still there Sunday morning. And I looked around and I said, all I see are friends when I look around here.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people. And I really do. It's just, those are my friends.
Yeah. So we talked about the jamming. You mentioned the workshops. There were some concerts as well, right?
Jordan has a band, the Pioneer Valley Flamethrowers. And on Friday night, they played, and we also had Blue Plate Special play, and we also had J.M. Clifford play. And he's a major recording artist guy, happens to be a friend of Jordan's. So there were 3 concerts, and then we did what we call the stage jam, where if you're a more advanced picker, you would get up there and be able to play together. So that was a lot of fun. And then, of course, on Saturday night, we have the open mic. And that's an event I'm never going to let anybody else MC, and I'm never going to miss, because watching people, again, forming bands with people they've met 3 hours ago, come up and play really excellent music on the stage together is a highlight of the event for me. And we had a band showcase in the restaurant featuring one of our familiar local artists, which was Raven and Red, which you listened to earlier.
Excellent.
And by the way, we just published a photo album of 650 photos from Jam Jersey. So if you are friends with Jam Jersey on Facebook, which you should do, go be friends with Jam Jersey and look there. I've posted a link that takes you directly to the album, and it's really fun to relive all those moments.
So there's all kinds of festivals and 1 and 2 day events around the country. And now you have one. So if Mike was saying, oh, I'm inspired by Jam Jersey, I want to have Jam Brooklyn or Jam Kansas City, what would you advise Mike in terms of getting that set up and getting it run properly?
Well, number one, I think having partnerships with people is very, very helpful. I really didn't know Jordan that well when I started this last year. I got to know him pretty quickly. It's been really wonderful how we each have the parts that we want to focus on. He's really more focused on the artists, the schedule, the workshops and things. I'm really more focused on the promotion, the community, the ticket sales, that sort of thing. So having a partner is a great thing. And I've mentioned already finding a venue. Not all venues are super amenable or interested. I'm sometimes surprised. They don't understand it. That's really got to explain to them what it is and how it works. And then you really got to get the people there. That's the one thing about any event. I've been putting together events for a long time. And one of the biggest challenges with putting together an event is getting attendees there. What's your plan for getting attendees? How are you going to get the word out?
Yeah, in today's wonderful world of social media, just getting anyone's attention is a challenge. I wonder if you have any statistics for us or any metrics you'd like to share with us in terms of the number of attendees, number of jams, or anything like that.
Well, last year we had what we thought was a huge win, which was 150 people show up. This year we had over 200 people, even more like 225
Wow.
people. So 50% or so more show up.
So how many jams were there? How many workshops? Do you know offhand?
We had 73 different jams and workshops scheduled.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So what's the plan for next year?
The plan for next year is, I'll say, more of the same because it's been so successful and so wonderful. Getting more people there. I feel like we're getting more brand recognition. I have extra koozies.
Okay. There you go.
We had swag at our event, right? This is a cheesy thing. We had swag. So this year we had beer koozies or soda koozies. And my plan is to put about 10 of them into my little cooler as I'm at festivals. And when I'm finished drinking my soda or my beer, I'm going to leave it on the table what the various jams where I go, so that these little koozies are going to be spread all over the place.
Or you'll have people chasing you around the festival. Lady, you left your thing. Do you have a date for next year? Are you targeting a date yet?
It's the same weekend of March, which is the third weekend, which is March 19th through 21.
That's awesome. And if people feel like they have an idea or want to just get on your radar in terms of volunteering or whatever, what should they do?
They should definitely email me, liz@bluegrassjamsnearme.com. And pretty soon I'm going to update the Jam Jersey page with all that new information. But you can always reach me, liz@bluegrassjamsnearme.com.
So any final words of wisdom for the potential organizer that you would like to impart before we take off?
I want to make sure everyone knows it's a very, very rewarding experience. I will say that I don't know that this event would have been possible if I hadn't been building my jamming community for the previous 5 years. So I have a pretty large meetup group, a pretty large mailing list at this point. And I'm very outgoing in my promotion of it, as you know, because if you listen to this podcast, you heard about it.
Yep.
And so consider having jams. Consider collecting people's email information, being in communication with people. That is a really great way to start building it. And start small, then go big.
Yep. And we've talked about starting jams here. One of our jam talks, we went through our collective wisdom on getting a jam up and running. If you've ever been to some of the jams where there's 20, 30, 40, 50 people there, it just indicates, there's a large jam that night. Maybe it needs a second one somewhere to equalize the size of the thing. Alrighty, Liz, I had a great time at Jam Jersey. It sounds like you did too. And I can't wait till next year.
So I have one question for you, Mike, before we go.
Turnabout is fair play.
If you were to say, you know what, I'd love to see at Jam Jersey next year, what would that be?
I really liked the idea that some of the jam leaders of even the informal jams had some idea of what they were trying to accomplish in the jam. I'm thinking of that Bluegrass jam I was sitting in. And it didn't just become a mishmash of, well, here's a Dylan song and here's an old time fiddle tune. And that can be fun. And maybe there's a place for random or completely unstructured. But I think a little more framework around the jams as the leader can provide is always good. And I think the idea of, as jams grow, having the jam leader feel comfortable to say, how about 5 of you, one of each instrument, you come with me, we're going to go to another room and start a jam. Mike, take this one over, okay? Somehow have a jam leader's handbook that allows them to know that it's okay to keep the jams at a manageable size, to break them up, to framework them in a certain way. that's always, I think, leads to a more enjoyable jam experience. Sometimes it happens organically, but sometimes what happens is jams get started, but then they wind up morphing and it sort of loses its focus. And depending on how quickly that happens, that can make, you have these people migrating around looking for another jam like that one.
Yeah, that is some feedback that we did get on the survey was having more jam leaders. Some of the jammer-led jams were great, but some of them were a little bit confused. So
Yep, there we go.
thank you for that feedback.
Of course. And I volunteered last time to lead jams. Happy to do it again. I encourage anybody listening who's in the area, wants to come on and contribute. Liz provides the organization and the framework, but it's the community that comes together and really makes it special. Thanks again, Liz. That was an excellent event. Really appreciate you putting in all that effort to get it done.
Thank you, Mike. Well, thanks for chatting with me about that, Mike. It's great to relive some of those moments of Jam Jersey, and we are already working on it for next year. And I really hope that this is helpful and informative for people who may want to think about starting something like this. Please feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea to spread the wisdom around a little bit. Please remember to follow us at Bluegrass Brooklyn, Brooklyn spelled BKLYN, on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. If you'd like to get in touch, say hi, make a suggestion, or ask a question, drop an email to mike@bluegrassbrooklyn.com. If you're looking for jams in Uptown Manhattan, Riverdale, Bronx, New Jersey, and increasingly across the country, check out bluegrassjamsnearme.com. All right, Liz, we're ready to go?
Yeah, thanks. And look forward to seeing people around the Jam Circle.